In this video, I want to explain what blue and green means in Tableau, hopefully in simple and concrete terms that would make it easy for you to get an intuitive understanding of what these two terms mean. Before you continue with this video, I recommend that you take a look at the 3 highlighted videos in the TableauPro channel that would set up the basics for further concepts here. In any case, these are the 3 fundamental ideas I've already covered. I'm gonna summarize them here. First is dimensions are nothing but text or date. Measures are nothing but numbers. And how do we aggregate or summarize numbers and dimensions? So for dimensions, we list unique values. For measures, we sum them up. These are the ideas that have been covered. You can watch the videos for further details. So now, blue and green, in other words, discrete and continuous in Tableau, is quite technical and complex. So in order to help you to properly visualize, I want to restart looking at dimension and measures from a slightly different perspective. This time, let's use concrete visual images that you can remember. So here is an image that I've chosen for dimension. And this is the image that I've chosen for measure. Pause for a moment and think about, do these images make sense to you? So let me explain my rationale. So when we go to a recycle bin, we take different types of garbage and put them in the appropriate bin. And then the recycle bin is processed differently based on what's inside. So when a database is dealing with our number of rows and records, it's doing a very similar process. It's taking each of these rows and trying to put them in the appropriate bin for further processing. So let's get into detail. Here is a simple employee master, just 10 records. They are sorted by department, 3 records in billing, 3 in finance and 4 in sales. The idea is to help you visualize what's really going on. The first step that the database does is it lists each individual values. So it ends up with 3 recycle bins, sales, finance and billing. And then it takes each of these rows and then tries to put them in the appropriate bin. Here the 3 records in the billing, they go into the billing bin, and the same thing happens with finance, 3 rows, and then sales, 4 rows. Once they are done, then the database works on summarizing by applying this function called sum or totaling, and then it arrives at 1 value per bucket. And that's what we get here, a simple report. Yeah, as you can see, on nicely pasted on the recycle bins. And we get this nice looking tidy report in Tableau. Yeah. So it lists individual bins and then it goes to sort all of these rows into separate bins. Then it applies the aggregation. So now let's take a slightly more complex example. What if we want to break down the salary cost by role within each department? So we start with big bins, but then we put smaller bins inside the big bins very nicely. This recycle bin has separate compartments for dealing with different types of garbage within the same type. So in the same way, so we start with grouping by departments first, but then once we are within a department, then we further break it down. We put a sub compartment or a sub bin within the bigger bin. And then the same aggregation logic or summarization logic runs, and then you get one number per that sub compartment, which is assembled together and then put on top of that big compartment. So finance has 2 roles, 2 sub buckets, and each one of them has a value. The same process repeats for the rest of the departments. That results in this final report that we see on the right, which lists departments and role, and for each of those combinations 1 number that gives us that salary cost. Yeah, so the logic of putting department and role in the form of recycle bins should be clear to you now. So before I go further, I just wanted to caution you, please don't think that I'm throwing people into dustbin, especially finance people. I know finance people are not the most loved ones in any company, but having done my MBA in finance, I wouldn't really make fun of finance people like this. Anyway, so let me switch from bins to buckets. Yeah, so to make it clear that I am not really interested in making fun of finance people, so let's put them in buckets rather than in recycle bins. The real reason I have chosen buckets over bins is bin is already used as a technical term in Tableau when we are dealing with histograms, and I don't want you to confuse these terms over there. But I started off with recycle bins because the logic of how we recycle garbage, we sort them and then we process them, is a very nice way to visualize the entire process that a database or a reporting tool does in terms of taking your data records, rows, and then converting this into a table. Yeah. So that's we are done with dimensions. So the image is going to be buckets. Now let's turn our attention to measures. This is the image. Can you think of why? What does this mean for you, this ruler? All of us have been used to rulers from our school days. We have drawn charts, we have drawn many things, XY plots and stuff with the rulers. We have used them in various settings in labs and stuff. So here is what I asked my students in this batch too. I gave them the employee data set. That one contained 20 records, and their job is to play the role of a BI tool by first doing the exact process that I've just outlined in this video for coming up with a table, and then they have to create a chart like they have done here. So here is one of the students' work. This is exactly what Tableau does. Tableau basically makes a call to a database, and then database does all this recycling work, comes back with a nice looking tidy table that you see on the left, and then Tableau takes those values and draws them like it is drawn on the right hand side. So now if you just focus your attention on the axis, the vertical axis, which is going from 10 to 80 here, with its consistent tick marks at 10, 10K. So it resembles the ruler, right? There is consistent intervals, there's a starting point, there's an ending point. That's why I thought it is a nice way to visualize numbers. Whenever we think of numbers, we should think of rulers. So now let's compare dimension versus measure. What is the difference? So to describe a dimension, what you have to do? You have to list each unique value. For example, here I have 4 buckets of different colors, blue, green, and yellow. If I don't tell you the 4th color, you won't be able to guess, right? So knowing about an earlier value will not tell you about a later value, right? So we have to know every single individual value. That's the characteristic of a pure dimension, because each value is distinct. It does not tell you about something else. Or in other words, if you use a technical term, buckets are discrete. They are separate. We can't club them together. Whereas if we come to the world of numbers or measures, you can just say the starting and ending point of the ruler or the min and max, and that gives us the entire idea. We don't have to list each individual value because the ruler is continuous, right? So one is distinct, separate, discrete, the other is continuous. One forces us to list unique individual values, each unique value, and then the second one just suffices. It suffices for us to just list min and max or starting and ending point. Just one more quick diversion. Do you know this book, Green Eggs and Ham? This is a book that I really enjoy reading to my kids. When I was trying to come up with my own version of Green Eggs and Ham for Tableau, this is what I came up with: blue buckets and green ruler. It doesn't sound as nice as Dr. Smith's work. But when I was thinking of green ruler and this book's image came, and it's a very funny image, I thought I can just put the same thing across to you, because we remember funny stuff, right? So I want you to memorize this simple thing: blue buckets and green ruler. So whenever we deal with dimension, we will refer to them as blue buckets, and whenever we think or discuss measures, we'll think of them as green rulers. We will get into a lot of complexity in applying these items when it comes to Tableau, because the color affects how charts are drawn. When you drop different things on rows and columns or in marks card, what kind of charts you see depends on what color the pills are, and then it affects filtering, it affects colors, it affects a lot of things in Tableau. But before we go there, so just hold on to this concrete image, blue buckets and green ruler, and that would help us. Now let's summarize. So blue buckets are discrete. That means we are going to list individual values. Tableau will list individual values when we are dealing with dimensions. Green ruler is continuous. That means Tableau will draw an axis from min to max, because that's what naturally, like the student in my class has done, that's what we will naturally do when we have to plot a number. So in the next part, should be part 2 actually. So we will look at the effect of blue buckets and green ruler on filtering, because that's the easiest topic. As you can see on the right hand side here, so there is a filter on department, there's a filter on a number, which is a salary, but these two filters look differently. We will explain why and then what does it mean in Tableau. For now, let's finish this video.